Now, guys, I'm not going to do the flex thing where I say, you heard about this here first, okay? I'm not going to do that because it would not be sightly. It would be slightly, um, not regulatory, right? But you did hear about Mac Delena here first. Now, there is an article from Arrowhead Pride titled Chiefs Camp Crushes. Fresno State wide receiver Mac Delena, the former Fresno State receiver, is an intriguing prospect from Arrowhead Pride by Rocky Magana. And this is a sample of what we got. Now, here's the thing. I do my best not to present an entire article as often as possible as not to usurp that article of what it does. I am not presenting this entire article, but the final verdict section of this article is from where I want to make my point. However, I am not actually usurping the value of the article. It is definitely still worth reading because one of the things that happens in the article is he gives you some footage of Dalena. So it's definitely worth checking out. You should go over to Arrowhead Pride and click on this article and let them know where you heard about Mac Delena first. The guy I'm talking about is Kansas City Chiefs undrafted rookie free agent wide receiver Mac Delena. He's undersized, played in the Mountain West, and didn't get an invite to the NFL Combine, the Senior Bowl, or even the East-West Shrine Game. But I still watched him. And I walked away with full-on Lady Gaga eyes over his potential as a bottom-of-the-roster guy, or maybe even someone the Chiefs can stash on the practice squad and develop into a legitimate special teams contributor. Keep in mind, if Dalena only turns into the next Nico Remigio, that's a win by UDFA standards. Again, I agree with all of this. The thing about, maybe he's a bottom of the roster guy. Maybe he stays on the practice squad for a year, but that's still a win for UDFA standards. Guys, there are players all across the league who were drafted and never play a down in the NFL. So this is 1,000% correct if Mac Delena becomes somebody who just takes reps for the Kansas City Chiefs, never makes a reception. That is an absolute win, and we have seen this happen time and time again for the Kansas City Chiefs and General Manager Bret Veach. General Manager Bret Veach loves to bring in scores of UDFA players, and oftentimes one or two of them makes the 53, and oftentimes one of them gets reps during the regular season. Is it possible that that is Mac Delena this year? Well, Rocky Magana has something to say about that. So, is he crush-worthy, the article asks. Is Mac Delena the second coming of Wes Welker or Julian Edelman? Probably not. But he is an explosive receiver who can work out of the slot and makes plays with the ball. But is he, an explosive receiver who can work out of the slot and make plays with the ball in his hands? I think he is. He plays bigger than his frame. He's a fierce competitor. He's got soft, reliable hands you can trust in traffic. That's enough to hand this bachelor a rose at the ceremony and give him a fair shot to make the roster. Final verdict, yes. Well, in addition to my distaste for the author's choice to throw in pop culture references, I do want to say that I am glad he threw out Wes Welker and Julian Edelman because, well, we have the numbers on these things. And look, I know football players are athletes. Athletes are not football players. There are a score of athletes in your mental Rolodex right now that would not make great football players. If you ever saw that clip of Conor McGregor throwing a football, you know that guy might have a fierce left hook, but he's not throwing a spiral. All sorts of track athletes. You think, throw a pair of shoulder pads on that guy, maybe you've got something. You would not. That is not how this works. So I understand that when we're looking at the athlete that Mac Delena is, and we're looking at the athlete that Julian Edelman is, and we're looking at the athlete that Wes Welker is, you can't directly translate those things to the football field. But guys, that's not going to stop me from doing it. So you have Mac Delena, 5'10 and a half, 180 pounds, 11 reps on the bench press. All of these are very poor numbers, as the RAS score would suggest. So how does he have poor numbers here? A 163 unofficial 10-yard split, also a red number, but still end up with a 7.46 yellow RAS score. Pardon me, I blanked out for a moment there. Well, that's because his vertical is 38.5 inches, his broad jump is 10 foot 5 inches, his 40-yard dash was a 4.36, his 20-yard short shuttle was a 4.13, pardon me, and his 3-cone drill was a 6.89. What did Julian Edelman do? Well, they were roughly the same height. Julian Edelman was 1/10 of an inch shorter than Mac Delena. However, he was 15 pounds heavier. But his 40-yard dash was a 4.52, not a 4.36. Probably his 10-yard split was faster. Both of these are from pro days, so you don't have the official 10-yard splits on there. Your 20-yard short shuttle for Julian Edelman was a 3.92, which is a very impressive number, and his 3-cone drill was a 6.62 compared to 6.89 for Mac Delena. So Julian Edelman definitely had more wiggle than Mac Delena, but Mac Delena's 38.5-inch vertical is 2 inches better than Edelman's. His broad jump is 2 inches better than Edelman's. Mac Delena is a more explosive athlete than was Julian Edelman, but he doesn't have quite the wiggle. What about Wes Welker? Wes Welker was 2 inches shorter and 15 pounds heavier. He ran 0.3 of a second fat. Wes Welker was 0.3 of a second slower in the 40 than Mac Delena with a 4.65 40-yard dash. He had a 4.01 short shuttle compared to 4.13. He had a 7.09 3-cone drill compared to a 6.89. So you've got kind of a push there for the agility tests. 30-inch vertical leap for Wes Welker versus 38.5, and then a 10 foot 5-inch broad jump versus a 9 foot 5-inch broad jump. He is a more explosive and faster athlete than Wes Welker, much faster. He has split the agility drills with Wes Welker. So the potential is there. The potential physically, the athlete that is Mac Delena is there. Now, that doesn't mean terribly much. It doesn't mean too terribly much, but it is a great starting point. Mac Delena, in my opinion, as Rocky Magana says, is a very explosive athlete, and he seems to be a tough football player. Those are things that you would say about any successful slot receiver in the NFL. Explosive and tough. Now, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, tough. Not particularly explosive. So you have someone who has enough of the measurables over the absolute classics at the position like Wes Welker and Julian Edelman, if we're just throwing around undersized white guys, apparently. He has enough of those characteristics that he's going to be able to, he's going to be awarded the opportunity to prove Brett Veach wrong, right? Just like I always say, there are certain offensive linemen that you draft and you make them fail out of offensive tackle. I believe this about several players on the Chiefs. You just make them fail at offensive tackle, and then you move them inside, whatever. But I think the same thing is true for Mac Delena with the Kansas City Chiefs this coming season. He's going to... Brett Veach obviously likes him because of something we're going to get to in a moment. He is the type of slot receiver that Andy Reid can do something with, and he provides the release valve. He could provide the release valve that Patrick Mahomes has not had for a meaningful period of time. Patrick Mahomes hasn't had this 4.36 40-yard dash wide receiver as the number 5 guy on the field in a long time. So there is a second article about Mac Delena recently. 2 Chiefs UDFA wide receivers have a chance to make the roster. The Kansas City Chiefs have a packed wide receiving room, but these 2 undrafted free agents have a strong chance of finding a spot on the pro roster this season. From Sports Illustrated by Dominic Minchella. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes recently told the media that the competition at the Chiefs wide receiver room ahead of the 2025 campaign is at an all-time high. With the likes of Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rashee Rice likely to have big roles, it leaves several youngsters looking for a place. Of those young wide receivers looking to make their impact known sooner rather than later, 2 undrafted free agents stand out. Both Elijah Badger and Mac Delena were picked up by Kansas City following the 2025 NFL Draft, as they both have nothing to lose and everything to prove. Skipping forward in the article, when it comes to Dalena, he was already projected as a priority free agent addition, which he turned into. His best game this past season came against the Sacramento Hornets, where he recorded an outstanding 235 receiving yards in 7 receptions, which averages to 33.6 yards per reception. The 2 could have intense competition all offseason, but it wouldn't be surprising to see either of these 2 become a part of the Chiefs' depth in 2025. Badger signed a 3-year, $2.965 million contract with the Chiefs, including $25,000 guaranteed. Dalena signed a 3-year, $2.975 million contract with the Kansas City Chiefs, including a $10,000 signing bonus and $210,000 guaranteed. It has been, in my opinion, since the moment Elijah Badger signed out of Florida as a UDFA with the Kansas City Chiefs, that he would be a part of either the 53 or the practice squad. It has been my opinion since then that I think he might edge his way onto the actual 53-man roster and contribute as a rookie. The fact that the Chiefs signed Elijah Badger out of Florida, a guy who almost everyone had as a graded draftable prospect. It would not have shocked people had Elijah Badger been drafted in the 6th or 7th round. He was signed to a $2.965 million contract, while and whereas Mac Delena was signed to a $2.975 million contract. $10,000, I get it, but Mac Delena took the money home. This tells me that the Kansas City Chiefs do have Mac Delena in their plans, at least so far as training camp is concerned. They do not expect that Mac Delena will be one of these guys who is around for a couple weeks and then they cut him and then they bring somebody else in at the wide receiver position, or someone gets injured, they cut Mac Delena to bring in another linebacker, whatever it is. This tells me that he is an actual prospect that the Kansas City Chiefs are looking at. He is not just a name that they are signing in order to pad the wide receiver room, in order to have someone to take reps in training camp. You see that every year at the quarterback position. You need a live arm to come in and throw passes in training camp. quarterbacks all across the NFL will be signed with no hope at making the roster. Sometimes that happens at other positions too. Mac Delena is not one of those players. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.